Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Books and Mortar podcast with me, your host Rizia, where we talk about the books that build us. This particular episode is a very special one because it is my first ever interview with an author, and that author just so happens to be a friend of mine named Chené Tuck. And she is the amazing writer of a book called Finding My Supergrrl, in which she chronicles tales of love and loss and friendship and hope, building yourself up after you've been completely thrown into rock bottom. There is a little bit of background noise here. Please forgive me. I'm still an amateur at this. I swear I'm learning. There is a little bit of background noise because we were doing a live interview at a restaurant, for the launch of her book. Thank you so much, Chené, for letting me interview you. It was such an awesome experience. And here we go, right to it. Okay, so can I read you the back of the book first, right? So it says, the book is called Finding Your Supergirl, if anyone doesn't know. Am I saying that correctly?
Finding My Supergirl.
Okay, Finding My Supergirl. Excuse me. All right, so the back of the book says, beautiful things. All things can be taken away, the good and the bad. Heartbreak and loneliness are not the end of the road, just the end of a chapter. I loved him. How tragic. I'm enough. I've always been enough. This is my journey to know this truth. To all the women that have been broken, made to feel unworthy and not enough, you are more than worthy and enough. Worthy of love, worthy of affection, and worthy of attention. There is a better life for you if you have the courage to take the steps, just one by one, to get there. And I think that you did, hey? Just one by one. So you've been really honest and very vulnerable throughout this book. I mean, that's one of the things that really stood out to me. And I think you've really given us a piece of your heart and soul. And how were you able to write so honestly? Was there a process for you?
You know, I actually just sat down and pretended that I was having a cup of coffee with you. That it was me and a friend, and I was just telling them how I felt and the truth, unfiltered, because, sometimes we filter it. And I just put it on paper and through a lot of journals. I kept a lot of journals from the beginning to the end. And
how many journals did you have?
A lot. A lot.
Okay. And the book reads like that. It reads like a conversation. It definitely makes you feel like you're becoming friends with the author. And I think that's something that makes it really easy to read and very enjoyable to read. It feels like a hug,
Oh, that's good.
You're not alone.
Yes.
So there's a few prominent themes that come up throughout the book. What would you say the major themes were for you?
Keeping hope, having courage, and also just making your life more adventurous, making it the life you want it to be. Because I remember at one point I was sitting in my job and I was looking at the computer, and there were people and friends that were traveling, and they had these pictures and posts and everything, and I was like, I want that. And eventually, once everything happened that happened in the book, a lot of people thought I was crazy when I quit my job. They told me that I needed to stay by my friends and my family for support, which they aren't wrong, but I needed to get away. And that's when everything started.
So when I read that you quit your job, I think I started freaking out as well. How did you do that? That's a very brave thing to do, because I don't think I would have been able to do it. And like you said, at a particularly vulnerable time, you decided to go away and leave everything behind. How did you make that decision?
I had the support of my parents. That helped a lot.
Yeah.
They understood that PE is very small, and sometimes when you've had a whole life, every street you go down, there's a memory. Every friendship or every friend that you talk to, there's memories. It's almost too much, and it's hard to move past it and heal when you're in the situation the whole time. And I've always been a travel bug. At 18, I also, a little bit crazy, went over to America at 18 to work in a hotel. Very naive, but it's just always been in my blood.
Okay. So there were a few significant relationships that you had through your life. So the one was in your 20s, and that was the better part of your 20s. And I mean, I don't know, now in my 30s, I would say those were maybe the best years that I had, you know. And I think when we're young, we tend to throw ourselves into relationships so fully, especially as women. What do you think of that? Do we as women tend to do that?
We do, because, you know, we're still trying to figure out who we are. And then sometimes, without realizing it, you're lost in the relationship. You know, you kind of forget about your own wants, needs, goals, you know, and then you lose sight of like the bigger things or what makes you happy. So yeah, I think in the 20s is a very vulnerable stage. You know, they say the teenage years are a vulnerable stage, but I think maybe the 20s is more vulnerable because you're an adult, you're on your own, you're not really under your parents' roof anymore, and you're trying to figure things out. You know, and everybody's really in the same boat as you, unless you have older friends, of course. So,
True. I do feel more settled in my 30s. I'm like more comfortable being me.
Yes.
You know, other people's opinions don't matter so much. So now that you've been through that experience, what would you tell another young woman in her 20s about losing herself in a relationship? How to prevent it?
don't.
It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that.
We're all trying to build a career. We're all trying to settle and that kind of stuff. But everything in society is changing. You know, you don't have to have a baby in your 20s. You don't have to have your dream job in your 20s. Although, you know, good for you if you do have your dream job. Also, just travel more. You know, find out who you are. You know, you don't have to travel outside the borders of South Africa, although I think that's a really good thing to see other cultures. But don't lose sight. You know, traveling helps you grow as a person.
I agree completely.
I had a really important point in my brain and it's gone now.
That's fine. If you find it, just put it out there. So, at this point, how are you feeling about starting over? The concept of beginning again.
It was the most overwhelming, scary thing that I'd ever done, because at 29, all my friends, they were married, they were getting ready to have babies, they had these booming careers, and nobody really understood where I was at. You know, they were just like, oh, shame, you know. Mm-hmm. And there you are, nobody understands you, and you don't have the life you've built yourself throughout your 20s. Mm-hmm. So now you've got to start from scratch, you know. Some friends stick with you, some friends don't. You know, but I mean, that's life. That's not relationship based.
So the first trip that you made was to the UK. And something that I really liked about the book was that the bad stuff makes up such a small portion of it. And then the rest of the book is you finding your way. And I really like that, because it was this shift to focus on the growth and the positive and not on the negative of what had happened, but how we're going to move forward. And that takes a lot of strength to do, I think. So your first trip was to the UK, right? And can you share a memorable memory from that trip, something that you maybe still think about today?
Yes, that moment where I got lost on one of the big streets and I was just like, I'm lost in the UK by myself and I don't know where my destination is, except for on this little map that I drew myself, and I was actually standing there overwhelmed. I remember, like, in my Ugg boots and my jeans and my jacket, and people were like hustling and bustling past me, and it was just such a significant moment where I was like, you know what, I just need to take one step. And I don't know, it's just something that stuck with me, you know,
that you could do it,
that you can do it. It's just one step, and eventually I think I was looking for like the Ferrari store or something like that.
Okay.
So it was, yeah.
Right. Did you have a physical map?
No.
Okay, I was going to be like, what do those look like anymore?
No, but I do remember lying on my cousin's floor with maps of the tube stations. So Andy and I were lying there, and he was trying to point out different things that I could do, because I didn't realize I should have, but that he obviously had to go back to work. So I was there visiting him, and and there I was on my own.
How did you find it navigating the underground?
I loved it. Once I got the hang of it, once you understood the tube channels and that kind of stuff, it was, you know, obviously there's connections and everything, but once you learn to read it, it became a lot of fun.
How many times did you go in the wrong direction?
A few.
Yeah, okay. You're like, oh man. Okay, so there was a sentence that you had in that section, and you said, I may have lost myself in London, but at the same time, I found myself in a strength I'd forgotten I had. And I think that was amazing, because you found it by yourself on your own. And I think that's the only way we find our inner strength, is by ourselves alone.
Yes.
Yeah. And can you maybe share with us 2 or 3 lessons that you took away from that trip?
From London or from London? I could definitely live in the UK at that point. Before I moved to Thailand and that kind of stuff, that it's not as different. That there's opportunities everywhere. I think that's one of the biggest things, is that I needed to be reminded that there's always going to be opportunities if you just look, if we kind of like open our eyes, and that I can do things by myself. I mean, it was scary going to sit in a restaurant by myself and eat lunch. Like, that's not something that I'd done before, because normally you have a friend come meet me for coffee, or meet your aunts or your cousin. You're never really alone. But you're hungry, there's a restaurant.
You gotta eat. Okay.
Yeah.
So another thing you said was that you managed to find a comfort zone outside of your comfort zone. What do you mean by that? Can you tell me?
I think it boils down to routine.
Okay.
It's kind of like when I was living in Andy's house, and then the surrounding areas, like there was a little coffee shop that I found, and I knew how to get to King's Cross, and I knew other tubes, so it was almost like I found a little comfort zone in knowing how to navigate on my own. Also.
So you developed a routine outside of your usual routine. Okay, I like that. It helps. Yeah, structure does a lot for us. Eh? Okay. So then after the UK, you went to Germany, and then you went back to the UK, right? After that, you stayed in London for a little bit longer.
Yes.
And then when you came back to South Africa, you made the big decision to go to Thailand.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Honestly, it started with a Facebook post.
Okay. As everything does.
Because I was on the farm, and I didn't know where I wanted to go. I just know I didn't want to be here. Because I'd packed up the house. The house was empty now, because I had to come back and still deal with that, which was hard, stepping back into old shoes that don't fit anymore, but my mom helped me through that. And I posted on Facebook, where should I go? And I think I included in there the post that I said, I think it was Spain, UK, and I listed a few places. It was really visa dependent, to be honest, but I put it out there. But I'd also made a deal with God, where I said, hi God, Chené here. I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing, so I will take the next opportunity that you send my way, which is a very broad statement now that I think about it, but that is what happened. And then after that Facebook post, I got a job offer in Thailand, and I was like, okay, I've never considered Thailand. I never thought I'd be a teacher. That is not something that crossed my mind. I didn't know how to do it. I hadn't finished my TEFL course yet.
Okay.
And I spoke to my parents, and I said I got a job offer in Thailand, and they were like, you know what, give it 30 days. You have a 30-day visa, go there, see if you like it, and if you don't, come back and we'll figure the rest out.
Okay. That was something that I liked, actually, that came up a lot throughout your book, is that you have the freedom to change your mind.
Yes.
Is that when you've made that decision, and even if you've taken an action on it, it doesn't mean that you can't go back. And I like that, because I feel like we forget that sometimes. But how did you feel when you got to Thailand? Like, you touched down in this very, very different country with a culture, language that you don't understand. How did you feel?
Overwhelmed. Because when I got to Bangkok, I had to figure out my way to Hat Yai. I didn't even know. I had a few instructions from my friend's dad. And he was like, no, when you get there, just do this, this, and that, which is easy on paper. But when you've never been to the airport, it's the airport, like that airport, and then everything's, half of it is in English, half of it is in Thai. So it was very overwhelming realizing I didn't speak the language. They didn't speak English very well, and it was hot. It was very hot, because we went from winter here to summer there. So I was way overdressed.
All right.
Well, they're permanent summer. So it was,
That's nice. I quite like that.
And their food is hotter than I'm just saying. Like, you think, I was like, I'm going to have a Thai green curry. I know Thai green curry. You don't.
Okay. All right. Because I ask you that because I spent some time overseas. And I got to where I was going to be staying. I put my suitcase down and I cried. I was like, is this going to be my life? Oh my goodness, it was terrifying.
I cried from the Thai green curry.
Okay, all right. But it was the spice. It was the spice. So,
yes.
So tell us a bit about your teaching experience there. What was easy? What was hard?
Sure. The first lesson that they shoved me into, they sent me in alone to a class of 40 military boys. that were 15 years old.
Oh dear.
So I didn't know what I was doing. I hadn't finished my TEFL course, and they were like, "No, just talk to them." I'm like, "About what?" So I kind of walked into this class, and I had 40 Thai boy faces staring at me like I was this monkey in a circus because I looked different to them. I had blonde hair, I had green eyes, I had pale skin, and they're all tanned with black hair and brown eyes, and they all like have, you know how Thais look. So I was overwhelmed. I was staring at them and they were staring at me, and it was awkward. So I thought, okay, I introduced myself and I just started with asking them their name and where they're from. That's.
And how did you find your way through the teaching course?
I studied a lot.
Okay.
I had Google.
Yeah.
How to do a lesson plan.
Okay, well.
I couldn't walk into a class without a notebook of. I could have a plan for the lesson. Mm-hmm. The lesson could change, and I'm fine with the lesson changing, but I needed a plan. Okay. If I didn't have a plan, then I didn't know. I was lost.
All right. Because towards the end, when you were leaving Thailand, there was a letter, actually, that you put in here from one of your students.
Yes.
A letter from no one. I loved that, actually.
Sure.
So, I mean, I think that even though it was difficult initially, there was definitely, like you said, a two-way street there. You taught them and they taught you. I thought that was really nice. What did they teach you? Just one thing.
What did they teach me?
Yeah.
It's okay to make mistakes. Because I messed up in the classroom. Not in a negative sense, but, kind of like lost my footing because I also didn't know their culture. Mm-hmm. There's things that you can't do in their culture that we do. It's fine. That's fine. Mm-hmm. Like, don't touch their head. Just don't. Like, it's disrespectful. Or if I would speak about things and it doesn't go with their culture, so they kind of like helped me learn about them. And also I had to find new ways to get them engaged, because like people think, oh, you're a teacher, you studied, you prepared. It's not like that. If you walk in there and they've just had a 2-hour science session, you're not going to get much out of them.
Okay.
Yeah,
physics takes it out of you.
So adaptability. But one of the best things about teaching was that I realized that when I walked into that classroom, nothing else mattered but those kids. Like I didn't have my phone, obviously your phone's on silent and that kind of stuff, and my only focus, it didn't matter what problems I had, it was them.
You threw yourself into the moment. Yeah, which is also something that you do a lot.
I do.
Through the book. Yeah.
I do.
So teaching overseas it's become quite a popular choice for young South Africans. I even know like a fair few people who are in the Far East teaching English. For someone who's considering it, you have a piece of advice for them?
Do it. It's fun.
Okay. All right. And you were there for 3 years?
Yeah, like call it 3 years, including my other travels. Yeah.
Okay. And how long would you say you need to be there for you to kind of adjust to the area?
I'm going to say over a year, because by a year you're adapted, but in the second year you enjoy it. Sometimes, there's a lot of situations that you kind of learn, like their toilet situation, which was completely different to our toilet situation.
Yeah.
And, or walking into a restaurant and getting steak and no knife, and you're like, how am I supposed to eat this with a fork and a spoon? Or noodles with a fork and a spoon doesn't work. Or chopsticks.
Do you want to tell us about the toilet situation?
I went out with a friend this one time and we went to go have a beer. Yes, I think and then you just go to the bathroom, and my friend was like, no, it's just down this way. And I walked in there and there was no toilet. There was a hole in the floor and a bucket next to it.
Oh dear. Okay.
And I looked at this and I was like, what am I supposed to do with that? I ran back to my friend and I was like, there's no toilet. And they're like, no, well, you got to squat. So,
wow.
So it was
So, again, there were a lot of aha moments in your books. And some of the things that you say, when you read it, it seems so obvious. You know, it's like, it feels like common sense. Like, people have a choice to walk beside you, or they have the choice to go their own way. And I think we've all experienced it, where people come into our lives and then they go. And it's okay to walk away, to want something else. But I think we find it so hard to implement these things in our day-to-day lives. And how do you think we can change it? Because I feel like you really learned to do that over the course of the book. And how did you do that?
The thing is, to walk away from someone is not to say goodbye and never see them again. But it is learning to put your own needs first. Sometimes if you're looking after everybody else, who's looking after you? Mm-hmm. And not everybody has your same interests at heart. And sure. Your friends aren't going to achieve your goals for you. Mm-hmm. And, they're there for a reason. And once you can understand the reason,
How do you kind of bring yourself back to remembering what it is that you want and understanding if your situation is pushing you in that direction?
You got to do self-reflection.
Okay.
Are they encouraging you, or are they distracting you to have a good time the whole time, or not achieve your goals? And also, just how do you feel when you're around that person or people? Sometimes you feel it, like your blood runs cold, or you get anxiety when it's not going the direction it should.
Okay. All right. I really like how you ended each chapter with like a little bit of a summary of what you learned from that particular episode. And a lot of what you talk about is living in the moment, breath by breath, one step at a time. And it's a lot about the mindfulness concept, yeah? And what does that word mean for you, mindfulness, and how did you come to implement it in your life?
Calm the voices in your mind.
Okay.
Because sometimes we have you've got the encouraging voice and you've got the doubtful voice. It's there. We all have it, Just sometimes one is louder than the other, and it's just taking a moment, taking a breath, and not reacting, and just trying to find neutral. Don't respond in anger. Don't respond in emotion. Take a moment.
Okay. I like that. And through all of the ups and downs that you had, what role did reading and writing play for you?
I didn't read as much, I'll be honest. Like, I had books, but the thing is, just before I left, I stopped everything that was me. I stopped yoga, I stopped reading, I stopped doing anything. And I actually probably didn't read. And I didn't read a book for like 2 years, which any of my book friends might laugh at me now. But writing was the definite outlet. Writing and music. Like, those are the ways that to my heart.
Yes, that explains your playlist throughout the book. And I love that I knew a lot of the songs as well. So it's like playing in my mind in the back while I'm reading your chapter. And that was quite awesome. So again, just one sentence that I really liked in your book. Like, I want to say this because I think it was one of the most simple sentences, but still one of the most profound ones. And you said, I love being me. I love being me. And like, I've never said that to myself, and I'm going to start. So thank you for that. So tell us, what do you want your readers to take from it?
You aren't what the world expects you to be. And if you can find at least the love of yourself, like, I think that I love being me. I was having a particularly bad day, like that day. And I was on my scooter. I had to learn to drive a bike, people. Like, I had to learn. There was a few near-death experiences there. And this was one of them. Because Thailand traffic is very different. There's a lot of scooters. Robots are like guidelines. You can always turn left. You don't have to stop at a red robot. You can left, U-turn, and carry on straight. That's the structure of it. And I was riding, I don't know where I was riding from, and I nearly got taken out twice in this trip home. And I was in such a negative mindset on there, but by the time I got to my destination, I was just like, I don't want to die. Like, it's really, it sounds extreme, but I was kind of like, I don't want to die. Like, I'm not a bad person. Like, I like me. I take adventures. Like, I like to go on adventures. I like music. I try new food, and I'll go bungee jumping and skydiving. And I was like, you know what, it's good to be me.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. I like you too.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So this for me is a book that you keep on your shelf or on your coffee table. It's one that you can read at different points in your life. It's something that you can pick up on any random day, open to any random page, and you will find something that speaks to you at that point. And it's warm, it's comforting, it breaks your heart, it builds you up again. You know, it's a story of hope. And just want to say thank you for bringing this just little beautiful piece of art into our lives. And I want to ask you, when did you know you found your Supergirl?
When I decided to stay, because I'd been through a lot, and one of the hardest things that brought me full circle was when I was overseas and I lost a parent, which is one of the scariest things that can happen to anybody traveling, is losing a parent and not being able to come back for their funeral. It's very hard. And yeah.
Okay, it's all right. And can we expect any more books from you in the future?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
All right. That's a great answer. Can you tell us?
Yeah, I'm working on like two projects. Two projects. One is a little like toolkit of wisdom book that I'm kind of like dedicating to my children, and another fantasy series, as well as a new book journal.
Oh, fantasy series, that's music to my ears, eh? But, okay, until that comes out, in the meantime, where can we get a copy of your book, Finding My Supergrrl?
From me?
From you, okay, great. And there you have it. I have to say that I really enjoyed reading this book. I'm not somebody who usually reads biographies, but I'm really glad that this one, came across my shelf. It was such a privilege to read it, and I really felt like I got to know Chené better, which was really great. It was very strange because I felt like I knew her, but then after I read her book, I felt like I knew her even better and for so much longer. It's really like just a chat between friends. She has such a nice tone in the book, and there are so many little lessons that she's learned that can so easily be transferred to others, and that you can then in turn teach somebody else. What a lovely book. Thank you so much, Chené, for sharing a piece of yourself with us. You are able to get a copy of Finding My Supergrrl at www.chenetuck.co.za. Chené Tuck is spelled Chenetuck. She's also on Instagram, that same handle, Chené Tuck. Or you can find a copy of her book on Willow Trading, or also on Amazon UK and US. So please give it a read, support our local authors. They're really doing us proud out there. Thanks everyone. This is me, your host Razia, on the Books and Mortar podcast, where we talk about the books that build us. Until next time, bye.